Here are 6 players you need to avoid on your Game Week 1 draft. I guarantee you have at least one of these players in your team. And the first player that I'm going to recommend you avoid for your Game Week 1 drafts is Ederson from Manchester City. 14.6% of the current player base do have him in their teams, which to me seems absolutely insane. I think he's about the 4th best goalkeeper pick in terms of ownership within teams, but ladies and gentlemen, you need to be avoiding this man in your team. Yes, Manchester City's fixtures are really good up until around game week 7, but Ederson does offer very, very little in terms of extra points on top of his clean sheets. I'm talking saves, I'm talking bonus points. This man just does not pick them up. He's a huge FPL troll as well. We saw that last season with him in and out of the teams, not keeping clean sheets, dropping occasional points, and that price point as well of 5.5 million. It's just a little bit too steep. You could get such a better goalkeeper for 5, even 4.5, who is going to get you so many more points, and that extra 0.5 or 1 million is going to do so much better things, much better things for your team in game week 1 as well. It's going to allow you to potentially get some better players who are going to score a lot better than him. Obviously, you can see his stats from last season. They aren't too bad in terms of points. The big difference is points scored and expected points scored. I think Manchester City went through that period. We saw it with Akanji's ones the other day as well in one of the players that I recommended as a potential differential. Go check that video out if you want to go that. It's on the channel. Really good picks in there. But yeah, I think there was this period where Manchester City were just conceding the odd silly goal and letting a lot of clean sheet points go. But Ederson is going to be the first avoid of today's video. That price point, and he doesn't get many extra points for saves and bonus points. Easy avoid for me in the goalkeeper department. Let's move on to our 2 defenders in today's video. Kieran Trippier is another player that you need to avoid in your game week 1 draft. He was such a popular option last year in FPL, finished as the highest scoring defender, and of course fantasy had to raise his price with the numbers that he did put up last year. 198 points scored, 1 goal, 9 assists for him. 34.1% of the game do currently own this man, which to me seems absolutely ridiculous considering the fact that Newcastle don't really have good fixtures up until around game week 6. And in the defensive area this year, there are so many good cheap assets who could match Kieran Trippier's scores, especially second half of the season where he didn't pick up too many assists. Newcastle's clean sheets as well fell away, so he didn't really pick up too many points in the second half of the season. I think he was on at the first half pre-World Cup to be potentially breaking the record for the most points scored. Second half of the season just didn't quite click into gear. I think you just get into that grind mindset where you're just trying to pick up points. You're not too bothered about performances or clean sheets. You just want to be picking up as many points as possible. And I think that's what happened with Newcastle. This year though, 6.5 million. Again, it's a very similar situation with Ederson. You could get yourself a cheap defender around the 5.5 million. What could you do with that 1.5 mil extra to your team? That could be the difference between going for a Matoma and maybe a Mount is off the top of my head. What a weird suggestion that would be. Mason Mount, you got Madison. There are so many good players at that 7-8 million range. Maybe that's the difference between you going for a Visser and a Jesus. Mind-blowing. Obviously a very popular asset, and I do think he will have his day in this game, but at 6.5 million for me, he is an easy avoid for your game week 1 drafts. Let's move on, to the other defender in today's video. Ben White is our second defender I'm going to recommend you avoid in your game week 1 drafts. Again, another popular asset from last year. This season at 10% owned already, but because of his good season last year, has had a 1 million price rise up to 5.5 million. Yes, the Arsenal fixtures are absolutely amazing to start the season. I don't think having an Arsenal defender is a bad shout. It's actually a great shout, but 5.5 million, you can get yourself so many better defenders at the 5 million range, even from the Arsenal squad. You've got Gabriel, you've got Saliba, you've got Ramsdale in goal. There's no point spending that extra 0.5 million. Yes, Ben White was a fantastic asset last year, but they've also signed Timber. You've got Saliba back. You also have Tomiyasu back from injury as well. So there's going to be a lot more competition for places. They've also got European football as well, so potentially limiting Ben White's game time as well, and I don't think he's going to put in those kind of numbers that he did last season. As you can see, an overperformance of XG and on XA as well. Points scored was very similar to what he was expected to score as well, but for that extra 0.5 million that you can save, I think a Gabriel or a Saliba or a Ramsdale is a much better option for your game week 1 drafts. Those were the 2 defenders that I'm going to recommend you avoid. Let's move on to some midfields and some forwards. Sticking with the Arsenal theme is Martin Odegaard, the highest point scorer in the Arsenal side last year. Absolutely smashed it, as you can see from last season's stats. 15 goals, 8 assists, but a huge overperformance in terms of his XG, and that's not one of the only reasons that I'm, potentially suggesting you don't go for him. It's that price point again, 8.5 million. You can get yourself Saka for that price, who I do feel is potentially a little bit more nailed within this side as well, and as well, he does take penalties, which I'm always banging on about. It is a huge asset in the game to have. I don't think Odegaard's the worst pick, but you potentially could put Saka in there with penalties and a little bit more nailed. That to me just makes a lot more sense as well. The overperformance on his XG as well. He's probably not going to score 15 goals this season. There's also question marks about what position he's going to be playing exactly with the additions to the Arsenal squad. The Kai Havertz, the Declan Rices, the potential departure of Thomas Partey and Xhaka as well. Where is he going to fit in to this side? Is he going to be playing a little bit deeper as an 8 or even a 6 maybe? Or is he going to still be hovering around that 10-8 position? Lots of question marks about that one. I think at least with Saka, you know what you're getting from him. You're going to get the penalties as well. You might as well save, well, not save any money, but potentially have the higher upside. I just don't think Odegaard's going to be Arsenal's top point scorer this season, and I think he's a player that you need to avoid in your game week 1 drafts for me. That was Martin Odegaard. Let me know if you have him in your team in the comment section below and what you're planning on doing with him in your draft. Alexis Mac Allister is the next player that I'm going to tell you to avoid in your game week 1 draft. Again, another very popular asset. That seems to be the theme throughout today's video, is it is assets who absolutely smashed it last season, but this year I just don't think, for whatever reason, maybe that's a transfer, a positional change, a price change, they are worth the value this year. And Mac Allister is another one of these. I think he's around the 6th most selected midfielder at the time of recording. 6 million, yeah, it's not a lot of money. Liverpool fixtures aren't the worst as well. That game week 2 fixture looking very appetizing indeed, and Mac Allister's stats aren't too bad from last season. But the reason I'm going to recommend is very similar to Odegaard. That position, what is he going to be playing? Is he going to be playing a 6, an 8 or a 10? There's so much more quality as well within that Liverpool side. That means he's not going to be getting penalties either. There's the potential departure of Jordan Henderson and Fabinho as well, which is highlighting potentially that he's going to be playing more as a 6 rather than an 8, rather than a 10. You can expect a lot less goals from him as well this season. Like I said, not going to be having the penalties that he did last year, which he scored so many and picked up so many points from as well, picking up bonus points from that as well. When he usually scored the penalty, he'd be the top bonus taker, getting all 3, having every single one of them. And yeah, in a Liverpool side, we don't know what system they're going to be playing. We don't know where he's going to be in that system. Lack of penalties. For me, I think just go for a player. You know the role. You know they're nailed. Go for them. Save the money. Get a better option in your side and avoid Alexis Mac Allister. Alexander Isak, or Isaac, is the next player that we are going to talk about in today's video. 12.9% of people do own him. Obviously, there is kind of a shortage of strikers, of kind of appealing strikers within the game. You've obviously got your Haalands, your Jesuses, and then after that, there isn't too many players that I would be recommending to put in your Game Week 1 drafts, and Isak is one of those players that I'm going to say avoid very, very quickly. 10 goals, 2 assists for him last season. Good opening debut campaign in the Premier League, but the reason I'm saying avoid is Newcastle's fixtures, as we went through earlier with Kieran Trippier, are honky. They are absolutely stinky, ladies and gentlemen. Just absolutely smelling of a cow field, fresh after they've just been fed. Like, yeah, you don't want to be going near Newcastle players up until around game week 6. Isak as well was kind of playing on the left a little bit, sometimes up in a top 2 with Callum Wilson, but for that 0.5 million, I just prefer to go Callum Wilson. You get the penalties as well, and I do think he is a little bit more of a natural finisher than Isak. And yeah, like I said, the fixtures, the pricing, he's not worth it. If you are in that 12.9% of owners of Isak, I would potentially be looking at other options. Evan Ferguson for those first 3 game weeks as a cheeky little punt, really great option. If you can find 0.5 in your budget, then Jesus is another great option. But other than that, there aren't too many other forward options, so I can see why a lot of people are going for him, but with those poor fixtures and the potential that he's going to be playing out on the left and not up front, for me it just makes it as an easy avoid. That was the 6 players that I'm going to recommend you avoid in your game week 1 drafts. Let me know if you need any help finding replacements for players that you do have in the comments section below. Thank you very much for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.